Hello everyone, and welcome to the webinar on the EMBO Global Investigator Network, Research and Networking Across Boundaries. I welcome our speakers, Gerland Wallen, the head of EMBO program, the EMBO program head, two global investigators from India, Bhaskar Bhaktavachalu from IIT Mandi, and Sandeep Iswarappa from IISc Bangalore. Noel Lowndes will soon be joining, who has been a former EMBO GIN selection committee member. Before we begin, a few housekeeping instructions. Each talk will be of 15 minutes. If the talk gets over earlier, then we'll have some time for questions. Else, towards the end of all the talks, we have a full 20-minute section on a box, and those questions will be communicated to the speakers. We now begin with the first talk. Over to you, Gerland.
Thank you very much. Let me start sharing my screen. So I hope you can see the slides. Is okay?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Thank you, Rohini. Okay, my name is Gerland Wallen. I'm the head of the Global Investigator the global activities, and I'm also responsible for the Young Investigator Network and the courses and workshops. And in this function, I will be speaking to you just to give a short summary of what EMBO is, why we are involved also in India, and then a short summary on what we do within the Global Investigator Network, and then hand over to the two global investigators and the former chair of the committee so that you can ask them questions and see what you may be able to gain and what you may be able to gain from the program and what you have to do to become a member and apply. So let me first start with what EMBO actually is. EMBO is an Academy of the Life Sciences. We have over 1,900 members in Europe, which are nominated and elected by the membership and annually, and we have more than 150 associate members worldwide who are similarly nominated and elected. Among this group, we have over 92 Nobel laureates. We also have associate members in India. I'm sure that you are familiar with the scientists that are listed here. And of course, India-born Venki Ramakrishnan from the LMB is also a member, and he received the Nobel Prize in 2009. EMBO is also a funder, and I'll explain about our programs a bit later, just very shortly. We are funded by the EMBC, which is an intergovernmental organization of 31 member states that fund the EMBO programs. But as I said earlier, we're not only active in Europe, we're also active elsewhere in the world. Foremost, there is India that has become an associate member state in 2015. And then there's Singapore, Taiwan, and Chile, who are, where again, all scientists in these countries have full access to the EMBO programs. And we are also a publisher of scientific journals. I guess worldwide, we may be best known for that. We have these 5 journals, and as an academic publisher, we work very much on making publishing policies that serve the whole scientific community. For example, we have pioneered the transparent publication process, which means that all the papers published in these journals are accompanied by the peer review comments that were received and the conversation between the author and the editor that led to this the publication. More recently, we have launched what we call Review Commons, which is a preprint peer review platform. And this is a quite revolutionary idea, I would think. So basically, before you decide where you want to send your manuscript to, you send your manuscript to Review Commons, which provide you with 3 peer reviews, as you would have in any other journal. And with this peer review and whatever response you want to have to this, you can send this to any of the 36 journals that are published by the publishers that are listed here on this slide, and the editors of these journals will take the peer reviews and your comments to that and assess whether this is something that they would like to publish in their journals. This has several advantages. Well, first of all, the time to publication is about halved. So it's much faster to publish in this way. And you also use fewer peer reviewers. There's one peer review with which you can go to several journals and get your paper published, which of course also means that you as an author would also function as a peer reviewer. And this way we would be using less peer review than is done in the normal way of publishing. So please consider using review comments, also in particular if you're not quite sure where your papers should be published. Just a quick summary on some of the other programs that we have. There will be webinars on this, on how to apply for this, etc., later in the year, organized by IBS. One of our largest programs in terms of reach are the EMBO courses and workshops. We are the largest funder of meetings in Europe, but we also fund meetings in India. Maybe you're aware of that. Please have a look at our website to see if and how you can participate. Here, I would like to point out that we have special grants available for scientists from India, Singapore, in our associate member states to attend these meetings so that it really becomes affordable for you. Then the second program that I would just shortly like to mention are the EMBO fellowships. They come in two flavors. They are the EMBO postdoctoral fellowships, which are your 2-year fellowships, and there are the short-term scientific exchange grants. Again, there will be a webinar later to explain your best procedures as to how to apply and what you can gain from these programs. So now let me just quickly move over to the EMBO Young Investigator Network, of which the global investigators are part. So the network consists of some of the best young group leaders in Europe and beyond. There is the EMBO Young Investigator Program, and we just had a webinar a couple of weeks ago on the Young Investigator Program. There are the EMBO installation grants, which are a bespoke program for some of our member states here in Europe. And then there is the Global Investigator Network, and I'll tell you a bit more about that. So the Global Investigator Network is available for group leaders in Chile, India, Singapore, and Taiwan, and it was launched specifically for scientists in our associate member states. So again, the aim is to support young group leaders in associate member states, support local networks via program members, and I'll say a few words about that, and also to network this group with the young investigators and installation grantees. And the benefits are some networking grants, which I will summarize, and I'm sure Bhaskar and Sandeep will tell you a bit more about it, how they have been able to benefit from this. So let me just quickly say what are the eligibility criteria. So you have to have run your own lab between 1 to 6 years. So this is 2 years longer than the eligibility period for the Young Investigator program, because we realize that in some of our associate member countries, it may take longer to establish your lab and get your first last author paper published, which is one of the prerequisites for eligibility. You would also have to have sufficient funding to run your lab, because this program is not to provide you with money for your research. This needs to come from elsewhere. With regard to the selection procedure, the application deadline is 1st of June, and in your application, you must include 3 letters of reference, preferably from former supervisors. Then there will be a pre-selection by the EMBO GIN committee, and 20 scientists will be invited for the next step, and that is the interview, the online interview. And I'll say a few more words about that. During that process, we ask for a review from an expert EMBO member to get a bit more insight into your science and into your qualifications. And then there will be a personal interview via Zoom with the committee on the 22nd of November, where you have the opportunity to present your research and ask any questions that the interviewers and the committee might have. And then, after that, 8 to 10 scientists are selected. Just to summarize, the average number of applications is between 40 and 60. So this is, of course, a number that's been rising in the last couple of years. The success rate is about 19%, and annually we accept between 8 and 10 scientists. And here the photos of global investigators that were selected in 2024. Now, let me just quickly summarize the different benefits that you can gain from becoming a member in this network. So here is a list which I'm not expecting you to read in detail. I will summarize a bit. This is just to say that there's a lot of things that we can support you with. And actually, pretty much all of the benefits that you see here have come from requests from the members of the network. So we hope that we are thereby able to really serve the needs of the young independent scientists. So let me summarize a few of the things that we are doing. So first of all, the core is the networking, which we start via the annual meeting to which successful scientists are invited and where they can present their research and talk to each other. A second flavor of our meetings are the so-called sectoral meetings, which are meetings of scientists in specific scientific areas, be that RNA biology, structural biology, microbiology, etc. We have 15 of these groups, which are self-organized. And the special thing about these groups is you might say, well, I go to my specialist conferences where I hear about the latest research. Well, the specific thing about these meetings are that you can freely talk about unpublished data, ideas that you have, and get feedback from a trusted group of scientists. Another feature of the program is the direct support for your group. There is a PhD course, which is for the PhD students of the program members. And here we are just working on exporting this PhD course to India, which will be hosted by some of the members of the network. We fund a lab retreat where you can go with your students to outside the lab to discuss how your research is going to move forward. We provide conference grants. That means we give you and your group members money we support you and your group members attending international conferences so that it also becomes affordable for you and your group members. We fund joint group meetings for you and other research groups in your vicinity, in your country or elsewhere, where you can then discuss possible collaboration. And these groups do not have to be members of the Young Investigator Network. So basically, you can use these funds to involve more groups in your country or elsewhere. We cover the publication fees for EMBO Press. And then we also have developed a number of training activities. And here I would like to point out, first of all, the EMBO Lab leadership courses, which have been developed specifically for academic group leaders. So as scientists, we of course learn how to think about experiments, how to write a paper, how to write a grant. But what we do not learn actually is how to run successfully a group of scientists, because this becomes now important once you become an independent group leader. The good news is that you can actually learn this. So you will learn how to communicate effectively, how to give feedback to your students that you can actually grow them into independent scientists, to understand what it actually means to be a group leader, what kind of values do you actually represent what your students hopefully would also want to aspire to, how to deal with conflicts in the group, and how to develop your team. So these are 4-day residential courses with 18 participants and 2 trainers. So it is super intense. You have short inputs on this, and then you can try things out in the trusted environment with your peers. We have now exported these lab leadership courses to India. We've done this before, but now after the pandemic, we are starting again. So there will be 4 lab leadership courses taking place in India this year. Here are the dates, and you can apply for these meetings, for these training courses. These training courses will be for free. The attendance at these training courses will be for free to you. So please use that opportunity and apply. I know that for one of them, at least there's still a few slots open. So I'm sure Rohini will again also send the link for the registrations in the chat. So another type of training that we organize for the members of the group are the so-called yin retreats that take place every 2 years. And here we provide you with other types of training that are usually not covered in the lab management courses, such as creative problem solving, negotiation skills, team management, giving effective presentations, etc. So this is a week of training that, again, if you're a member of a network, you can sign up to and recover your costs in coming there. The last thing that I'd like to mention are the mentorship program that we're developing. This is going to be online, so you'll be able to select among the EMBO members or former young investigator program members a mentor and get in contact with them. So with that, I'd like to finish, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Gerland, for introducing the EMBO GIN program and the other programs as well, and also for throwing light on the benefits of the program and the procedures. We have time for a few questions, and we are checking the QA box. You can type the questions. Meanwhile, I have also shared the link for the EMBO lab leadership courses that Gerland just mentioned. You can check the details on the link and can also register.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, also the IBS will be able to answer them because they are organizers and co-organizers of these, as you have seen. So,
Rohini, shall we take a couple of quick questions?
Yeah, Karishma, yeah, we can actually.
Or you want to take it later?
Yeah, no, we can actually take, yeah.
Okay.
So one question is, does it matter the reference letters are from a national or international supervisor? And what are the best references, so like what from colleagues or supervisors based in India?
what is important is that this person knows you. So a former supervisor is important because they will know you best. So this is the best assessment that you can get. So it is not worth it if you ask someone elsewhere for a letter of reference who doesn't really know you. So whatever is the closest relative, so to speak, who can talk about your science, then this will be the best person to send a letter of reference for you.
Divya asks, are investigators from private institutes and state universities eligible, given that they possess all credentials?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And there's a question on the Ramalinga Swami Fellows. So are Ramalinga Swami Fellows eligible for this program? That is, those
Yes,
who
and
apply, yeah.
Yes, and as far as I understand, Ramalinga Swami fellows do have. So what we need to see is, or what the committee needs to see, is that the people are scientifically and intellectually independent, so that you can ask for grants. You have students in your lab that you're advising and supervising. So I think the answer is yes, and I think some of our GINs are actually Ramalinga Swami fellows, if I know that correctly.
Okay. There's a question on the age limit. There are a couple of questions that people want to know about the age limit for application.
There is no age limit. The limit is that you can be independent for a maximum of 6 years.
Okay. One question is by Nandini. I wanted to know if a PI who is 7 years into the job can apply for this program, or are there any other programs for such persons?
No, you can apply if, for example, women with children get an automatic extension of 1 year per child. So if you are a woman with one child, you have 7 years to apply. If you are a man, but you have children, we add 3 months per child to your eligibility criteria, or the time that you have actually taken off paternity leave. So this is a way how the eligibility can be extended.
Thank you, Colin, for answering those questions. We now move to the next speaker. I request Bhaskar to share the screen and present the talk.
Can you see my screen? Hello?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you. Hi, thanks for inviting me for this webinar. I'm glad that I can also learn some of the information from Gerlin. So I am Bhaskar. I am an assistant professor at IIT Mandi. My lab is predominantly interested in RNA binding protein, especially in neuronal translation control and neurogeneration. So I would like to, because I was asked to share my experience, so I thought it would be useful for people to know my experiences or my journey. I did my PhD from NCCS in Pune, and then I moved on to a postdoctoral fellow job. And then I came back to India as a campus fellow at NCBS, where I spent 4 years before I could take an independent position at TICS at INSTEN as a senior scientist. So most of the time in which I had my research, I tried to focus on one core area of biology, though I had used it in different model systems. I used to be a cell biologist, then I started using it on the insect biology and whole model organisms. This is my lab, and my lab is funded by India Alliance, as well as Serb and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as well as we have core funding from the Institute. And thanks again for EMBO for funding us through GIN program. So our motivation, or my specific motivation for applying for this particular program was there was access to funds, but this was flexible funds that makes a big difference. And then more importantly, you get the networking opportunities and career development opportunities as well through this program. And you get to meet a lot of new people who otherwise you might not have met because you have flexible travel and support. And so you can come up with new collaborations with scientific community, and you can also contribute. More importantly, I feel it also gives you a national and global recognition. So, of course, this was the motivation, but it all started in 2016 when I was a campus fellow at NCBS, and I was attending an EMBL conference on the complex life of mRNA. That's when accidentally I met Minaj. Minaj used to work in the same floor as I was. And that's when he came for an interview in October 2016. This is when I was introduced to YIP. And then some of my friends, especially Dimple, who got GIN program. And then I used to constantly talk with Sunil, who was also a GIN awardee. I think me being in this Bangalore campus did help because I could communicate with many of the people who had already been awarded, and their experiences did help me and also motivate me for applying for this particular program. Don't worry about the details here, but I wanted to, two take-home messages from here is you need to start early because my application timelines was like large, as you can see. I started planning in December 2019, and I wrote to Lena at the time. I think it's Lena was the program manager at YIP, asking about questions about the program itself and eligibility and few other questions as well, because there was no webinar at the time. And then I reached out to Dimple immediately to ask her about suggestions. And then I applied for YIP in around April of 22. It's the process itself is so smooth, and there is constant communication. I mean, every time you get to know what the status of your application, you get proper acknowledgements, and there is a very smooth and open communication between the program office and yourself. And then I got an invitation from GIN office asking that you have applied and it's easy to transfer your application to Global Investigator Network program as well. Would you like to do it? And I said yes. And so I applied for Global Investigator Network program without troubling my references because they could transfer my letters and some of the details to the Global Investigator Network program. Unfortunately, the Young Investigator program didn't work out. I got a regret email, but good for me that at least it worked out at GIN, where I got an interview call. And so the other nice thing was I found it very useful that I had an opportunity to update my application and CV, especially. Because in 4 or 5 months, you might have published new paper, or you might have done a few other things that you want to update and increases your chances. And I did update my CV at the time. And to make sure that your interview is free, they do a test run, and they also take your recording. It's a 10-minute video recording, because in case there is a network issue, at least the committee gets a chance to evaluate you through the recorded video, which I felt was very useful. One, because the recorded video helped me improve myself, how I present. And second is I could share it with some of my colleagues and get feedback. So I used the 10-minute recorded video, and especially I sent it to Sunil, who gave me some good feedback that I incorporated and made some changes. And as well as I always am in touch with my mentors who gave me some feedbacks. And then there was an interview, and I got it. Of course, the whole process was very smooth and fast, and the activation itself was also very smooth. So the office is extremely helpful in most instances. And I think my experience till now, I have been GIN for only a year now, but I already see that there is some extra recognition that you get because of you being you being attached to an EMBO program. And you also get slightly more opportunities to attend meetings and network. Of course, there are funds, but there are also the flexibility in the fund makes you try or attend the meetings that you would sometimes avoid. And there is travel and registration support, not just for you, but also for your lab mates, or especially your students. And I seem to think that you get slightly more talk invitations, especially from the EMBO meetings that are happening around you, because EMBOs have special support for EMBO fellows to give talks. So that's an extra perk that you get out of it. And like I said, didn't want to stress again, it's an easy and flexible grant management process. My lab has started to getting benefited. Of course, like I said, it's been only a year. But even within this first year, I have been able to travel to at least 3 meetings, where one of them I was able to start a new collaboration, especially in Singapore, the last time I was. And we started working on some of the projects. And it has also helped me of the review process, where I could get feedbacks from the people I met in the conferences. So that has been an additional advantage. I mean, if you are only used to Indian grants, this was a surprise, where money arrives on time and it arrives as well, in advance, so that you spend the money that you already have. I mean, and that was cool. And then you can also support your training programs. Like, for example, I send my students to some of the labs in Bangalore, where they can learn things that we don't have here in IIT Mandi. We are in some of the remotest location of India. So this helps me to send my students to get training. Especially my first PhD student did go and spend time in Bangalore and then came back, and she's working here. So that's a great help. And more recently, I have applied for it. I'm pretty sure that they'll consider. They also have a bridging program where, because of reasons like COVID, most students have affected. I mean, they couldn't finish in 5 years. So you probably get 3 to 6 months of extension in fellowship support, and that helps. And lab retreat was fun. Of course, both science and non-science activities that we did, and it helped in bonding between the people in the lab. So the tips that I can give is, of course, start early. That's most important. But more importantly, talk to applicants. That helped me a lot. Don't just talk to successful ones, talk to unsuccessful ones as well. Because that's where you learn on what are the smallest things that you can probably change in your application. I mean, don't have a really a broad theme of a research program. Have a cohesive and a vertically build up of a research program. I mean, you need to project that program would actually grow vertically, not horizontally. I think that's more important. I think that's what the committee is also looking for. with a focused and most important research problem. I think what the committee probably is expecting is you would be a leader or one of the leaders of the program over the time. And of course, you have to convince it with what you have done and then what you're planning to do. And share your applications. If, like, for example, I shared my videos as well with your mentors and peers and friends and get feedback. That helps. If possible, of course, like I said already, anticipate tough questions. There are going to be tough questions in the interview. Be prepared for it. Some of them you might normally not have thought about it, but the interviewers have looked into your CV. They have looked into you in very detailed that you would not have expected. So anticipate tough questions. These are some of the tips that I have, and I would be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhaskar. Thank you for sharing your experience, and particularly thanks for emphasizing the importance of mentorship in the entire
Right.
process. There is time for a few questions. So there's a question on funding, like how much is the funding? It's a common question which has come. If you would like to answer
Yeah. I can. Of course, Gerlin would be the right person, but I can give my view. I thought your lab has to be sufficiently funded for you to be able to do research, because EMBO funding is not sufficient to do. EMBO is not for research. It's more for networking and travel and training. So you have to be, your research has to be sufficiently funded for you to be able to even get shortlisted for interview. That's my view.
Gerlin, would you like to add something?
Yes, that is correct. And maybe the question was also how much money do you actually get? So you get 7,000 euros on your account, but in addition, if you would, so with which you can send your students somewhere, as Bhaskar was describing, but there's additional money that we provide for your travel. If you travel to any of the meetings, etc., that comes on top of that.
Okay. There is a question on the details, like how detailed should the research proposal be?
I think it's very well described in the application package itself. I think it's, if I remember, it's less than 2 pages, or about 2 pages is what the whole application is. So you don't need to have too much of methodologies and stuff, but it has to be a clear, concise summary of what you are doing and what you plan to do. The projection of your future goals. These two are important.
Yeah, and it's not only one, you're not funded for a particular project, but you're funded for the work that is done in your lab. So on one hand, of course, the committee wants to see a certain focus, but they also don't want you to be too broad, because that may not be possible. Then they may think that, and it may be true most of the times, that you cannot do all the projects that you're proposing. So sometimes we have people who are proposing very broad projects in their lab. So be careful that this is something that you can actually successfully carry out in your lab. That was about the project, right? Yeah.
Thanks. There is one question on how much weightage is given to the quality of publications as a lead author. So sometimes getting a quality paper in the first 5 to 6 years would be a challenge, and therefore the question.
I think it's important you need at least one last author paper to be eligible to apply, getting pre-screened, and the quality matters. I don't think impact factor and other things matter, but the quality of the publication itself do matter.
Just to add to this paper is actually to show that you can do independent research. So it must be things that have been done in your lab and based on your ideas. So it shouldn't be something that you have basically just the continuation of your postdoctoral research. Of course, your research will build on your experience in your postdoctoral lab, but it should be something where you have developed your own independent angle. Of course, nobody expects you to publish a Nature paper as your first last author paper, but it has to be in an international peer-reviewed journal, and it should show that you're independent thinking and that you're actually able to carry out research in your own independent lab.
Thank you, Gerland and Bhaskar. There are some more questions, but those are general and we can take them towards the end. I now request Sandeep to present
you.
his talk.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. You might want to share your screen.
Yes, sure. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Yes, Sandeep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank India Bioscience and EMBO for giving me this opportunity. I would like to share my experience. There is a story of failure and a story of success. I'm hoping that you will learn from my experience, especially from my mistakes. Okay, I first tried applying for EMBO GIN program in 2020. At that time, my lab was about 5.5 years old, so I was eligible based in India. And my lab works on a major, important molecular biology problem, that is translation regulation. How during translation, ribosomes recode stop codons as sense codon, which results in continuing of translation. So we are interested in the molecular mechanism of this recoding process and the physiological significance. And it comes well within the scope of EMBO. And at that time, I had 4 papers as senior author or corresponding paper, including one in EMBO journal. And my lab had sufficient funding, including one from India Alliance, DST, and Ministry of Education, etc. So with all these things, I was fairly confident that I have a good chance. However, my first attempt failed. I was not even called for the interview. So it was a learning moment for me. I discussed my application with a colleague of mine who was successful and also some senior colleagues in my department. And after discussion, I realized that my application had few major weak points. These are all my perspective. I don't know why exactly. I don't know why it was rejected, but these are from my point of view. These are the weakest points. So the one blunder I did was all 3 referees were from the same institute. I don't know why I chose like this. So this is something which one should not do. It is opposite of the definition of global for which this grant is given. So next, I used a lot of space in writing the grant, the research importance, the future plans, the technical details, everything. But I did not emphasize why I need this award. I think that's very important to convince the committee that how the GIN award will help us to improve our research and reach our goals. Third, another one of my colleagues pointed out that I did my PhD in Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and I came back here to work as a faculty. So I did not define my choice to come back to the same institute, the same division in the same institute. So I think this also I should have tackled better. So after learning all these things, I decided to give another try. This was after almost 6 years as a PI. So this was my last chance. I had 2 more publications as senior corresponding author. So in that way, it was more competitive. And my lab still had sufficient funding to support all the research I proposed in the funding. I also worked on the weak points. I contacted 2 of my mentors and colleagues in US. They were they happily agreed to give reference letters to make my application global. And also, I spent a paragraph on emphasizing why I need this grant, how this grant is going to increase the chances of meeting my goals. Especially, my research requires collaboration with structural biologists, synthetic chemists, clinicians, and industry. So this network grant will help me to meet leaders in this field and forge new collaboration. So I strongly emphasize this part. And I also wrote a paragraph on the major contribution to our in the field in our field, and so I convinced them that we are at the forefront of the research in my field, and I have the potential to become a future leader in the field. With all these efforts, I was called for an interview. I was happy, and in the interview, I'll also give some tips about the interview. These tips are also applicable for your initial application also. This is 10 minutes presentation. We begin with telling who am I, like my education, my research training and experience. And also, it's important to highlight if there is any distinguishing part on your side. For example, in my case, I had a medical degree, so I highlighted that I was a clinician, then I moved to microbiology field and then switched to molecular biology field. So I highlighted the interdisciplinary field I worked in and the ease at which I shifted from one field to another field. I think that also makes some positive impact. And also, we all write about or present about a lot of our research, but I feel the committee also wants to know what is driving your research. What is that it is inspiring you? I think that is something which you have to focus during interview. The committee should know that you are an inspired person. You have the passion to achieve the research goals you have proposed. In this slide, as already said earlier, when you write a project or when you present a project proposal, the message should be very clear, simple, and it should be understandable by the entire committee member. Remember that committee is diverse. There will be people from different areas of molecular biology. So less technical details is always better, and more figures, less text. And also tell them why your research is important. Why on earth anybody should be doing this research? Does it have a societal relevance? Does it fill any important knowledge gap in the field? All those things, both in the initial application as well as in the presentation, we should give importance to. Next, after all these things, the committee, I think, they will look for a potential leader in your field. So you have to provide as many evidence as possible to convince them. For example, if you have an important international award or grant or even national award, just highlight this. If you are invited to give a talk in an international conference or chair a session in an international conference, or even if you're invited to organize a conference, so please mention that. So this shows that you are already recognized in your field. That means you are a future leader in your field. I think that these things will make a lot of positive impact during the initial application as well as during interview. So with all these things, I got the letter with positive news from Gerlind, and now I'm going to share my experience as a GIN member. So the first meeting I attended as a GIN member was Young Investigator Program Retreat 2022. According to me, this is the best part of the GIN program. And this was in Germany in a resort for 5 days, I think. And surprisingly, there were soft skills courses. Gerlind already mentioned about this. I didn't even know that there are courses to teach all these things. Only there I realized that there are courses, and they're so important, like how to improve your management skills, how to handle projects and teams, how to make very good presentations during presentations as well as figures for papers, how to improve self-leadership, how to manage work and am I still audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. And the negotiation skills, how to make your lab meetings more effective. So all these things are really, really helpful. Due to the time constraint, I could only attend 2 of these courses, self-leadership and design principles. But I was immensely benefited by these 2 courses, and I still use many things which I learned from these courses in my labs. And even if you don't want to attend any of these courses, you can just sit for 5 days in that resort. You read whatever books you want to read in your area, or write your grant proposals or papers. It's a amazing, very flexible time you get away from everything. Next, I attended the annual meeting last year in Milan. This was another amazing experience. There, many young investigators will come and they present their research. So in this meeting, we were given 3 minutes. Initially, I found it very challenging, but then later realized it was so effective. I could figure out who else is working in the similar area, who shares interest common with me, and I could meet them. And these are designed such that there are long breaks, coffee breaks or lunch breaks, where you can meet another person, another EMBO person, and then exchange your ideas, get some inputs about your work or talks, or maybe personally you can explain the work in detail. So this gives this informal environment to forge new collaboration and get very good feedback about your work. Another important experience from this meeting was the night science workshop. Again, I didn't know about this workshop. This is a workshop about creative thinking. So the day-to-day scientific process involves doing experiments, doing computational work or theoretical work. But to do all this work, you need some kind of ideas, some creative thinking. So this workshop was on how to maximize this time when you get ideas and creative thinkings. Of course, I can't explain this completely. There is an online course on this. If anybody interested, you can take it. But it was a wonderful experience, and really, I was benefited by this. In addition to this, I have used GIN Fund to attend some national and international conferences. Before GIN, if I was invited for a conference, I should think which one to choose, because my travel money is limited. I can't go to all the conferences. Now, thanks to GIN, I don't think I say yes to everything because I can manage fund. I don't have to worry about the funds anymore. I have also supported my students to travel to international meetings, because our institute gives about 2 lakhs per student to attend international meetings. Many times that is not sufficient. So the excess expenditure is usually covered by the GIN fundings in my lab. And I also use this to to travel to collaborators facilities where my students do experiments. I also use it to get clinical samples and others from hospitals for our experiments. So in a nutshell, so EMBO is like this ladder where it facilitates your movement, your progress to the next level, and you will have a completely different view at that level. My special thanks to the EMBO team with whom we usually interact to send applications and all. Gerling, Leo, Betsy, and Ildiko. Thank you all. I can take some questions.
Thank you, Sandeep, particularly for sharing your story of your failure. Failure stories are not often told, but those are the most inspirational ones. And regarding that, there's a question by Divya. Divya says, thanks for sharing your failure. How you worked on those points is motivating and gives a reality check to the first-time applicants. So did you discuss with colleagues or a mentor after the failure?
Yes, there was a colleague who was successful. I discussed with him, and there were senior colleagues in the department. Informally, I spoke to them and I told all these things. So I could improve upon it only after sharing my failure. I think it's important not to get discouraged by failure. It's important to discuss with others, so then you will come to know what could be the reasons for failure.
Thanks. This is a question which can be answered by anyone from the 3 speakers. The question is, what exactly is the committee looking for in an ideal candidate? Anyone can take this, Bhaskar, Sandeep, or Garland.
in Berlin?
I think Gerlin is the right person.
Okay, so this is actually very nicely detailed in our application guidelines. So of course they are looking for the track record. You know, have you been able to publish your research previously? It's not only, of course, your last author publication, but you know, does the trajectory show that you are, you know, a good scientist? Then one thing, of course, is group and environment. Is the number of people that you have in your group, is that sufficient for the research that you're proposing, right? I'm not saying that you should have a huge group with loads of research. I'm saying that the number of scientists and also their qualifications must be congruent with your application, with the research that you're planning or that you're doing. Another thing is, of course, during the interview, it is very important that this is where both Bhaskar and Sandeep also shared the experience in terms of, you know, pre-recording their interviews and then discussing that with others. You know, does that make sense what you're presenting? And you know, can you then answer the questions, and can you convince the committee that you have in niche? I mean, of course, as a young group leader, you are in competition with the good and the great all around the world. Have you been able to actually identify an area where you are a specialist? You know, that's the thing where you're probably one of the few who understands this and who asks this question. So that's very important for the committee to see that you are somebody who you know, who has identified where they are the specialists and where they can meaningfully contribute in the future. Yeah, and another question, very important for the committee, is your scientific intellectual independence. So are you always co-publishing with your former supervisor, which does not initially convince the committee that it is you who is the ideator, right? So you know, you have to be able to make, you know, even if you should be co-publishing with your former supervisor, make clear to the committee that the idea is actually yours, and you know, it is just some facilities that you need to use, for example, in the hope that it is so. So you know, this is very important to the committee, your intellectual independence. I think in a nutshell, that's all the criteria, and they are nicely listed in our guidelines. And this is also the criteria that the committee sees and that they evaluate you against. So there's no two sets of criteria that you would not be aware of.
Thanks. Sandeep, would you like to add?
Yeah, I mean, nothing. It's just they want to know that you are the future leader in this field, and you have the track record, the infrastructure, the intellectual environment of your institute, and all the lab members. They're all supporting you to become a future leader in this area. I think that's one line answer to that.
Okay. Bhaskar, would you like to add?
I mean, Sandeep just mentioned as well, institute, I mean, the host institute also matters. Of course, you can be a star candidate, but if the host institute cannot support your research, then probably the committee may not find comfortable. So yeah, that's one point that I would stress.
Thank you. There's a question by an anonymous attendee. There's a question. I joined as an assistant professor in one of the universities in India in 2021. However, previously, I worked in another university for more than 8 years. Am I eligible for GIN? Gerlin, would you like to answer this?
Can you read that again? Sorry, I
Okay,
need to.
so someone joined in our university in India in 2021, but before that they were in another university for more than 8 years. So are they still eligible to apply for GIN?
That depends on what their position was at the other university. If they were an independent investigator with their own lab and students, etc., no, they are not eligible.
Okay. So Gerlin, would you also like to share something about the selection committee's criteria on selection of the GIN fellows?
Just a second. Yes. Well, I already summarized what the committee is looking for in these criteria. They will be, so the way the interviews work are that you are, you join via Zoom like this, and you will see a 5-member committee. There will be one committee member who is who is most closely related to your scientific area, and they will be the lead interviewer. So they will be asking questions. They obviously have read your application. They've heard your talk. They have read the review of the EMBO member who is a specialist in your research area, and they will be starting by asking you questions about your talk, and then other committee members will chime in. As I said earlier, you have to, if you're at that stage, you anyway have a 50% chance to get selected. So you're already very far ahead of the crowd in that stage. As I said, the committee will try to find out what your niche is, what your intellectual independence is from previous supervisors. Right, and they will, of course, have specialist questions to your research. In terms of then how the selection works, obviously the committee will hear 20 interviews on that particular day, and then they will be discussing who should be in and who should be out. Right, and the criteria are, as I said earlier, it's your track record, it's your presentation, it's your intellectual independence, it's your sufficient funding and group size. Are you also in an environment that actually helps your research? Are you in an environment where there are other researchers that are, working on similar areas where you can collaborate and where you can collaborate and get feedback from? So you're the only one working on neurobiology in your institute, that may not be conducive for successful research because you lack the intellectual environment. So they will be looking at that as well.
Thank you.
Anything else, Sandeep or Bhaskar, would like to add from your personal experiences?
Nothing. I think you have covered everything.
Same here. Yeah.
Can we take the next question? Yeah, so there's a question on how does it matter how much previous grant one has?
How much money one has, or
How
how
much
many
grant, yeah.
No, what is important is that you can support the research that you're proposing. So sometimes the institutes may be covering for the PhD students. So you don't need a grant to cover their expenses, but you need enough grant money to be able to cover the research expenses for the research that you're proposing. So there's no real limit or lower limit. Well, lower limit is of course nothing. If it's only your salary that's covered by a grant, that's not going to be sufficient if there's no core funding or anything. So I mean, because situations are different. You may be in an institute where there's core funding, so you will not need large grants. You may be in an institute where there is, where they cover your PhD students and master students. So, you do not need to cover those costs from your grant, but you need to be able and make clear to the committee that you have enough money to carry out the research that you're proposing. So it is not worth saying what the sum should be.
Okay. Thanks. There's a question, are bioRxiv preprints accepted as publications during the time of application?
During the time of applications, for sure. At the time of the interview, the committee would see either that this publication, that the bioRxiv is paper is peer reviewed, so you can get that via review commons, as I mentioned earlier, and there are other platforms who do the same thing. So the committee wants to see a peer review of that paper, or it may of course also then be published by the time that published in another journal. But it needs to be peer reviewed. That's important.
Thanks. There's a question to Sandeep. Whether and how the committee looks at coming back to the same institute, and how did you justify that part, if I may ask?
Yes, that was not easy. So the way I justified was family reasons. My parents live in the same city, so and they are getting older. They needed my support, so that's the reason I came. And also, I came to a different department. I did it in microbiology, but I was coming back to biochemistry department. And my research, there was no overlap between the research I did in PhD and the research I was doing as I am doing as a PI here. So that was in microbiology. Now I am doing completely eukaryotic mammalian translation regulation. So I think there were enough reasons for me to say that I'm not in the shadow of my PhD. I'm completely segregated from my PhD, though I was I'm in the same institute.
Thank you, Sandeep. Nivedita asks, how much does international collaboration or international grant boost one's candidature? Gerlin, would you like to answer that?
If it makes sense, of course, it also makes it makes the committee confident of you being able to to attract collaborators elsewhere and getting the expertise that you need. So I think it's a very good idea if you have that. And I think both Bhaskar and Sandeep showed that they had done their PhDs and postdocs elsewhere, right, or PhD or postdoc in another country. So that actually also showed that they are able, they will have a network already that that will help them in their future research. But it's not a necessity or prerequisite. So we have other examples as
well. Deva Prasad asks, how many peer-reviewed articles is a prerequisite for application of EMBO and GIN both?
So you have to have one peer-reviewed last author publication to qualify, right? So that's just the basis from which the committee will ascertain, knows that you are somebody who can publish from your own independent lab. So the number really is not important. It also depends on your stage. So it cannot necessarily be expected that you have many more than one. So, of course, you saw Sandeep had quite a few already when he applied, but it's not. There is no, the limit is one. And if you're at an early stage, it is also clear that you cannot have more, most likely. Although I would have to say, probably, if we look at sort of history, people in their first or second year have a not as good a chance because they are competing with people who are further along, who have already more things published. It's then sort of a way off also on the side of the committee. The more senior people would, of course, be more competitive, most likely. But that really depends also on what kind of niche you have created for yourself. So but I think, I don't know whether Sandeep and Bhaskar would agree that it may be beneficial. I mean, you can apply several times. You can apply twice. And you can go to interview twice. But that means, but you have a 6-year window, which means you have to hedge your bets. So, maybe it is beneficial for you if you wait another year. I don't know what the two of you would have to say to that.
If I had to.
Go ahead, Bhaskar.
Go ahead. Yeah, after you.
Okay, what I feel is if you meet all the eligibility criteria and if you are within 6 years, just apply and attend webinars like this, talk to people who are successful, and then try to make the strongest application possible. And in case if you fail, you will learn from your mistake like me, and then reapply again before the 6-year limit. I think failure teaches according to.
Right. I agree with Sandeep as well. But one more thing, because the question was about do one publication sufficient? It also depends upon the field of study. If somebody is working on mice developmental biology, you're going to have it's going to be difficult to get multiplication. So and somebody working completely in silico, maybe they have higher chances of publishing more. So I mean, just the numbers don't define if you're ready or not. I mean, you need to be a good judge of your own science and your peers around you.
Yes, and the committee will understand that for sure.
Right.
Well, thank you. There's a question by Chandana. Is there any ideal group size or minimum group size? My current lab has 4 members. Can
I feel
anyone?
that
I think that's, yeah, sorry,
Darling, go
you
ahead.
go ahead.
Sandeep.
I feel that it depends on the kind of research you're proposing. If you are proposing a kind of research which can be done by 4 people for next 5-6 years, and that should be fine. I'm sure the lab size grows with time, especially in the initial years. So it all depends on the kind of research you're proposing.
Yeah, and I think also the committee would be scared if you had a very large lab. They would be scared, they would be worried that, not scared, they would be worried that you would be able to manage so many, as a beginner, so many people, so many projects, etc. So I think, level, for group members is a safe level to start with. And as Sandeep was saying, you will be growing over time, but that's absolutely fine.
Thank you. There's a question by an anonymous attendee. Yeah, like how are the reviewers, like the GIN committee selection members, I feel, how are the reviewers selected or invited? Is there a list of reviewers available?
Yes. So the committee members are, of course, listed on our website, so you can find out who they are, and maybe you can already calculate who would be the person interviewing you. In terms of who the reviewers are, as we're saying, we are getting an outside review in. That would be an EMBO member. Our list of EMBO members is available on our website. You can actually, there may be somebody whom you are in competition with, whom you may not want to see your research proposal. You can tell us that. You can tell us up to 3 people who you want to exclude from the review process, so that your research does not become compromised because of this process. Afterwards, so after the interviews, if you're unsuccessful, you will be sent this anonymized reviewer report, so that you can actually see what the criticism or other way around from this reviewer was. But you will not know who this was, but it will not be somebody you have excluded.
Thanks, Gerlin. Just for the information of our attendees, we're sorry the 4th speaker, that is Noel Lowndes, has not been able to join us, but you can keep asking the questions. We still have time. There is another question. If there is a member from an institute, do you consider applications from another member of the same institute?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just checking some more questions. Okay, so Divya asks, 2 of my grants just got completed. One is ongoing, and I have applied for 2 grants and is in the process. So how does the committee consider at such conditions?
That's positive that you are applying, so you can list that. It's the committee will know from the application that you have 1 successful grant, and that you're applying for grants. So that is a positive. It's it's of course speculation whether you're going to get it, but it is information that you can put up in support of your application.
Okay. Sandeep, there's a question for you. Thanks for sharing your failure story. If I may ask, what stage did you fail at your first application?
Oh, in the initial application itself, I was not called for the interview.
Okay. I would like to answer the second part of this question. The recording will be available on our website. Nandini asks, is there a certain field of biology that is preferred over others? Evolutionary biology or ecology included?
Yes, evolutionary biology and ecology are included. We have had a specific drive now. I think I said that. No, I didn't. So EMBO has its 60th anniversary, and we had a specific anniversary election this year with twice as many new members. And one of the things that we were looking for is underrepresented fields. In particular, ecology had been a little bit underrepresented in EMBO, and I think we're trying to correct that, etc. And you will also see in the list of GINs and young investigators who've been elected in the last couple of years. There have been people who study particularly ecology. I think evolution was never really a problem, so that's of course core.
Thanks. There are some common questions on specific research areas, and Leo has shared a link on EMBO subject areas. So I request the attendees to take a look at the list. I'm still looking for some more questions.
Sounds good, Rohini. Lots of interaction, lots of
Yes.
So maybe Rohini,
Yeah, I'm starting. Yeah. Yes, Karishma.
I'll jump in with a question.
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
So what's the kind of support, Gerland, that's offered after the program is over, after you're done with being a GIN?
Yeah.
Is there
So
any
you're a member for
career mentorship?
Yes, thank you, Karishma. That was a good question. So you're a member of the program for 4 years, so which means that you have all the financial benefits and things that you were listed. But as a former member, you're still part of the annual meeting. You can still attend the trainings. You can still attend the sectoral meetings. In fact, the sectoral meetings live off former members attending. And of course, we hope that you become part of the mentorship network that we are setting up. So former member. Just an example, yeah, for the Yin retreat, for example, that we have in Croatia, we have a good number of former members who want to participate and who can participate in these trainings. So you are not off our screen once you're no longer at least an active member of the program.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Gerland. Thank you. And Anuj has a question about the link from Leo, but that's just right above your message, Anuj. That's just right there. Yeah. So we're waiting for a few more questions. Any other questions, Rohini?
Yes. So while we are discussing areas of research, there's a question on any area that is considered a priority over other areas.
No, it's specifically. I think the most specific. So where we have. So medical is a bit difficult. It has to have an angle. It has to have a molecular angle. So medical studies such as clinical trials and things like this are not competitive and are not really considered. But anything medical, of course, that has a molecular angle, you're looking at particular molecules, particular processes, etc. That, of course, is very much core EMBO.
Another question, just to fill in, Gerland, about the selection process. EMBO does a very good job of ensuring gender and geographic diversity. So the awardees will be from your member states, that is Taiwan, Chile, India, and Europe. Do you normalize the number of awardees to the number of researchers in a field in these countries?
No.
Okay.
Don't. So it doesn't mean that there has to be at least one researcher from each country. There may be not one in a particular year.
Okay.
No, I mean what we're looking for is indeed gender balance, but again that is over a 5-year period of time, right? So here there may be too few men being selected. The next year it will be the other way around. So we really look at a 5-year window, and that's similarly also with the. But we don't have quota for countries. So in none of our programs we do.
Not even like a soft quota, a hard quota for sure, but not even a soft quota. Yeah. Okay, interesting. I'm not seeing too many more questions, Rohini.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
but we can do a little small activity since we have 15 minutes and we want to make the most of it. Maybe those of you post-webinar now feel like they will apply. You know, they sort of have the confidence and the information and the awareness to say, you know, I'll give it a shot. I'll throw my hat in the ring. Maybe we can put up your hand, use Zoom to maximum benefit. Maybe you can do a show of hands. Those who feel, you know, at least we will apply. Let's see what happens. Excellent. Saurabh, Nitin, Prem, Shruti. Quite a few. And I'm seeing it flow in. So I think
They are increasing, yeah.
that's really great. Garland, Sandeep, Bhaskar, and Rohini, shall we call this tangible outcomes of this webinar? That we have
Absolutely. It's good to see.
good to see people who are saying at least they'll throw their hat in the ring. That's good. That's good. A lot of times we are a little, let me say, many researchers in India at least are a little overwhelmed about these international grant applications. You know, you almost reject yourself even if before the application. So it's good to see at least a few say they'll at least give it a shot. Okay. In the
Yeah.
meantime, yeah.
It is nice that India Bioscience really supports that, you know, with these webinars in particular, you know, with the two grantees who can, you know, that's different than me talking, right? It is
That's right.
walk the talk, so to speak, and can really also help potential applicants.
Exactly.
I hope.
Exactly. Absolutely. And
You can find, there was a question about whether we have a list of unsuccessful applicants. No, we don't, and I do not like to share this. This is a private matter. But what we do have, of course, is a list of successful applicants. Again, you can go to our website and then search, you know, if you prefer scientists from India who are global investigators or young investigators, and you know, you can then contact them. It's of course up to them whether they will help you, but from what I hear and know, they will certainly be able to give you feedback and help you.
sounds good.
Well,
And, maybe we will just use the last couple of minutes then, unless we have more questions coming in, which I don't see. Chandana says the webinar.
no,
Maybe
yeah.
Rohini, I just want to tell them about our IGAP program and the future
Sure.
partnership
Yes.
with EMBO over the course of the year.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. Yes, so India Bioscience has an IGAP program, that is International Grants Awareness Program, and we highlight all the international grants open at a particular time through our resources in the form of dispatches. We also conduct webinars like the EMBO GIN webinar. Previously, we had conducted a webinar on EMBO YIP, and there will be many more webinars and events related to IGAP and international grants throughout this year. So please keep an eye out on India Biosciences website and our social media channels. Next month, we will again be announcing a webinar on EMBO fellowships. Please follow us on our social media, and we will be announcing the webinar soon. Just now, we have in today's webinar also shared a link for the EMBO lab leadership courses. So if you are within 7 years of starting your own independent laboratory in any institute or university in India, please take a look at the details. You can register on the link. And the last date to register is 30th of April. The two courses will be held, one in Pune and Bangalore in October. And I think the deadline for the courses in Hyderabad is over. So there are two courses happening in Hyderabad also.
I think there may be sorry, Rohini. I think in one of these courses in Hyderabad, there are a few more spaces left. So there may be an extension of the deadline for that.
Okay. Yes, I'm sure the updated deadline will be available on the website soon, so we can check that. With that, on behalf of Team India Bioscience, I thank Garland, Bhaskar, and Sandeep. I also thank all the attendees who participated in this webinar. Thank you for the discussions. It was honestly, I was struggling to keep up with the questions. And yes, the recording will be available. If you've missed a part of it, the entire video will be available on our YouTube channel. So follow us on social media. And again, we will be announcing more events soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, India Bioscience.
Bye.
As well as Gerlin and Rohini and Karishma. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhaskar.
And thank you to Leo
Thank you all.
for answering all the questions in the chat window.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. See you around.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Looking forward to receiving your applications. Thank
Yes.
you.
Bye.
Bye.